Welcome to Molywood-GUI tutorial number 3, in which we'll see how to use your own molecular system to create a movie and how to set up all the representations needed for that. So in this case, I have a trajectory that essentially consists of a DNA molecule. There are other ligands that are not yet visible here. And if you look at the trajectory, you can see that it's not aligned. And the typical intuition of an experienced VMD user, you could say, is to go to analysis, to do RMSD trajectory tool, and type your selection like nucleic, and just align it, right? This works fine inside the VMD session, because then you can look at the trajectory and see that it's nicely aligned. It doesn't work for Molywood-GUI, and this is a point I want to drive home here, because this is a procedure that does not get remembered or written to the VMD visualization state, right? So my advice is, if you're making movies of trajectories, just always pre-align your trajectory the way you want. However, if you don't do that, there are still ways to deal with that. So for example, if I go to add an action, I can always add this rewind align action, which just rewinds the trajectory to frame 0. Otherwise, it will start from the last frame and aligns it to a chosen selection, right? So I can again put nucleic here and add an action. This is an action that lasts 0 seconds, so it's not going to take any frames in the movie. So let's build the actual movie from here, right? Let's do add action. Let's add maybe 2 seconds of doing nothing. This is just a pause. Then what we can do is we can animate, right? We can give a 5-second animation, say from frames from 0 to last. This is fine. Add action. And we can cap it off with another do nothing action, so that we have this kind of sandwich of pause, then animation, then pause, just to give the viewer a bit of time, not to make things too abrupt. I can just now go and preview it. Let me just zoom in a little bit. I can go in and preview this in VMD. And now I'm going to explain what happens in this pop-up here. The first thing that you're going to notice is that your source at the moment is this 1UBQ PDB code, which is ubiquitin, right? And you don't want to visualize ubiquitin, you want to visualize your own system. So what this thing here says is that, your current preview is based on this PDB code. But if you want to use your current VMD state instead, just click here, right? So I click here, and I have the current visualization state that was just saved now as my new source. You can always do that. This will use the latest visualization state as your starting point for the movie. And here we have 2 different preview modes. One is save and restore everything. The other is just continue on top of whatever you have. The first one is usually the safest, unless you really have a special case where you worked for hours on your VMD setup. Let's go with the first one for now. So you can see we're waiting for 2 seconds, then we're doing the animation from the beginning to the end. You can see there's something happening in the DNA, and then we're just waiting for the 2 seconds. And we're back to our trajectory. Once we finish, we reloaded the state. You can notice that as we reloaded it, the trajectory is now not aligned again. This is a feature of, as I told you, this RMSD trajectory tool that doesn't get saved. But since everything is aligned to the 0th frame, we can just keep working with the 0th frame as the reference. And so the one thing that happens to the DNA is that there's actually something intercalating there. I can add a new representation. In this case, this is an intercalator, and it has, I can set it to have a different, color, whatever, and find a good angle. I can actually zoom in a little bit more, and maybe also move the whole thing here to the setup the way you want. And then I can preview again. So I can again save the current state and use it as a source. Or if I want to just change the visualization state to the current situation, I could also go here, change the source to current VMD state and just save and update, right? It will have the same effect as if I just went here to preview and say save current and use as a source. It doesn't change much. I can do that again and continue with save and restore. And let's look at the new preview. In the new preview, we're gonna have an animation where the intercalator kind of comes from the side. This is great. I might want to change the angle though, because in this case, it comes from that side. Might want to view it from the different side. So again, let me just recenter this and rotate in such a way that I can look at it from this angle here. And now let me preview this again. I can again save this visualization state as a source. Remember, every time you change a camera angle, you should redesignate it as a new source, right? For your movie to be based on this new camera angle. Okay, let's do save and restore again. And now we can see our short movie will look like this, right? With the final frame, the intercalator being intercalated there. We have 4 actions. 3 of them have some duration, so we should see 3 of them on the script diagram. As you can see here, pause, animate, and pause. And if you want to have the actual MP4 file, we can press render. With the snapshot and default setting, we're gonna have this, 9-second video. In a few seconds, hopefully, it shouldn't last more than 15 seconds, and composition of the frames into the MP4 file. Here we have it. You can watch the MP4 file. Just for the sake of it, let's switch to the high quality render mode. This is not going to make a big difference, but especially if it's a trajectory, you might want to increase the FPS rate, right? Because then you will have more dynamics happening inside the trajectory. Let me render this again, and I will skip ahead to the actual result and tell you when it's done. Okay, so this took about 1 minute, and you can see, I hope you can see that the frame rate is actually higher here. The quality doesn't change that much because we don't have any transparencies or things that actually require darken, and the resolution is just 750 by 750. So there's not such a big difference in quality. That's why for things where you don't really use many features of VMD, you can safely use the snapshots renderer. If you want to make things semi-transparent though, or just have them in a high resolution with ambient occlusion and those extra features, I highly recommend using the Tachyon renderer so that you can get the highest quality for videos. Of course, it will take much longer, but you can also run it on a workstation, so you can create an input and just run it with Molywood and name of the input on a remote workstation, and this will create the movie the same way as this GUI would. There will be tutorials on this as well, so stay tuned. In the meantime, thanks for watching this tutorial, and I will talk to you in the next one.